is Conor Glass or Noya agus Emma Bradley.
Nish Glass and so, British Jahan so, Caution Eigen Hool, agus and Turt Hool. Conor Glass, will any nach Fedish and Versa Ayana.
Well, the Mira, Guru and Dancher Agoni, Untu, Guru Cool Agoni, Saglan, agus Hannigan.
What's the story, everyone? How are we all getting on? Welcome back to the channel. So the All-Ireland Club Football and Hurling Championships then. Oh my goodness me. Talk about final day drama. Talk about like every reason why we love club football, club hurling championships is because of that. Late drama, late goals, points, controversies, like absolutely wild stuff from both Wally Graham's Glen, obviously going up against St. Brigids in the football final, and of course St. Thomas against Olan Gales in the hurling final. Of course, obviously these finals were a couple of days ago, and usually what we do on the channel is we'll do match reactions, we'll do a podcast straight after. I was away at the weekend, and unfortunately with the storm and everything else, it meant that I couldn't get back to, you know, my HQ, if you want to call it that, or my setup here. So, you know, unfortunately I was stationary where I was and I had to sit there and watch the finals, but I couldn't make any videos on them. So I do apologise for this being a few days later than expected. But look, I've had a couple of days, I suppose, to think about these finals, and opinions can change over a couple of days. So we're going to break both finals down, discuss both games and the reaction to both games and everything else, because yeah, both games were very, very exciting in fairness. Firstly, if you're new to the channel, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And one thing I did want to mention, actually, just before we do get into the video is, so basically, I think most people, anyone who's followed me on Twitter, social media or anything like that, would have seen a tweet I put out basically saying rest in peace to Pete Farley, who was basically a regular contributor, a regular commenter, subscriber, follower of the channel. Unfortunately, he passed away at the weekend, which was obviously very sad news for his family and I guess the GA community as well, because he was very, very active on Twitter. He would post a lot of his opinions. He would tag, 10, 15 people in a lot of his tweets, and he would have stats and everything else. And he was very opinionated, like all of us in the GA. We all have our opinions, and I think that's what makes Gaelic games and sport so brilliant, because my opinion can be different to yours, and that's what makes it so great. But look, he was a follower of the page. I know he didn't always agree with all of my opinions. I know he was very unhappy when I predicted Mayo to win the All-Ireland last year, and he felt like I was jumping on the bandwagon a bit too much, and in the end he was proven right, to be fair. And yeah, he was a regular follower of the channel, regular contributor, and very sad news that he passed away at the weekend. Condolences to his family, his friends, if anyone happens to be watching this. And it's certainly going to be strange not seeing him, email me or, send me messages. He was always, he would email me his opinions. He would DM me his opinions. Very, very sad news overall. And, yeah, condolences to his family and everything else. And without a doubt, I think he would have had a lot to say, I'm sure, about both finals. So we'll speak about the football final first. Firstly, I feel so sorry for St. Brigids. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. I mean, the first half, they were the better side by a mile. They took the game to Wally Graham's Glen. Glen were sitting back and inviting Brigids onto them, I felt, too much. And Brigids were very, very good. They're shooting in front of goal. They were so clinical. Brian Derwin, I thought, was very good. Ben O'Carroll was very involved in the game, setting up scores, winning marks, winning frees. I thought Brian Stack was absolutely phenomenal, sort of moving more so into a midfield position, winning kickouts. And I thought Brigids were fantastic. But what Wally Graham's Glen is, they have that, they're an experienced outfit now at this stage. In the All-Ireland final last year, winning Ulster titles, winning county titles. You've got Derry footballers in there who have been playing at the highest level for a couple of seasons now with the Derry inter-county team. They've got some real quality footballers and they've got that individual quality that in any given moment they can turn this game on its head. And right at the end of the first half, a huge goal from Jody McDermott. Emmett Bradley kicks a point after that as well, and Wally Graham's Glen just slowly turned the screw. And quite incredibly, despite St. Brigids being the better side, in my opinion, in the first half, Glen went in level at half-time. And it wasn't, in my opinion, like Glen played poorly or anything like that. I think Brigids were just very, very good, and I think Glen struggled to sort of counteract what St. Brigids were doing in that first half. But Glen were brilliant in getting themselves back into the game, in fairness, and when they got their moments, they took them. The second half, like Brigids, in my opinion, again, they took the game to Whitey Graham's Glen, controlled the game very well, went, 4 or 5 points up, going down the home stretch. You felt like this was going to be Brigids' day. Like, Glen just started losing their way a little bit. Few misplaced passes. They just couldn't seem to get a grip on the game. They couldn't seem to get their big players into the game. And it felt like the game was drifting past them. And like, there was a moment sort of in the last 10 minutes where Brigids were like, they looked like the game was done. It looked like the stars were aligning, the game was aligning. It just felt like this was going to be the day for St. Brigids to win that All-Ireland. But then up stepped Conor Glass, and I'm absolutely delighted for Conor Glass, because for whatever reason he's gotten a lot of like unfair criticism in the past year at the best of times, like even from Joe Brolly, who I remember came out on a podcast and was saying he was an ordinary footballer and all this crack. Like, I just never really understood that, to be honest with you. Like, Conor Glass has been, in my opinion, probably one of the most influential players in Gaelic games over the past couple of years. Like, when you think about it, this is a man who came back from the AFL, and when he came back from the AFL, Whitey Graham's Glen had never won a title in Derry. They'd never won a Derry Senior Football Championship, let alone an Ulster title or an All-Ireland. And then his county Derry as well, like in inter-county football, had been in the doldrums. They were a Division 3 team. Do you get what I mean? And they hadn't won an Ulster title in about 20 years. And since he's come back, he's won 3 county titles with Whitey Graham's Glen. He's won 2 Ulster titles. He's won an All-Ireland with Whitey Graham's Glen. He's won 2 Ulster titles with Derry, played in 2 All-Ireland semi-finals, and Derry have been promoted to Division 1 of the National Football League. You talk about one of the most influential footballers to, like, in my opinion, in this century. I genuinely do think that. You wouldn't say he's been, the best around like that, but one of the most influential players, in my opinion, I think, to ever play for Derry. And like, his race is far from ran. Derry, if they go on and win that All-Ireland, the inter-county football, it completes it, in my opinion. And I think you can then say Conor Glass is one of the all-time greats, in my opinion. But talk about like having an influence, like absolutely incredible, really. Another player, by the way, for me, who deserves so much praise is Emma Bradley. 4 points, 3 of them from frees, kicked some big points in big moments in this game as well, when Glen really needed to sort of stay in the game and everything else. And he has been so crucial for Whitey Graham's Glen as well, in my opinion. And I don't know if he will come back into the Derry side. Obviously, he's had a couple of injury issues and everything else. Does he want to focus on playing for the club? I'm sure a lot of you lads who are Derry fans, like in the comments down below, will let me know about this in more detail. But if he can get himself into that Derry side, and like you have that Glass and Bradley partnership, obviously you're not going to have it in the early part of the league, you would imagine, unless Mickey Hart does a Rory Gallagher and just throws them straight in the first game away to Kerry. But that's a solid midfield pairing, in my opinion. It really, really is. And that maybe just might be that difference for Derry that they missed maybe last year. And I think if you get Emmett Bradley in there, who can be able to complement Glass perfectly, that could maybe be the difference for Derry long term. Kieran McFell was obviously very good as well. Ethan Doherty, brilliant. Michael Warner, Conlon McGuckian. Like, fair play to Glen for just getting over the line and finding a way to win. And look, ultimately, maybe some people will say Brigids deserved to win the game, and I can understand it to a certain extent. They were probably better in overall play in terms of possession, chance creation. They were leading for the majority of the game. But ultimately, like, I think an important part of winning All-Irelands and everything else is resilience and mentality. And Glen had that in abundance. Do you get what I mean? They didn't lie down. They found a way to win. They found a way to dig it out. And that is such an important part of winning All-Irelands. Like, so many times in history, we look back at teams who've won All-Irelands, who've won major titles. They haven't always been at their best on a specific day, like whether it be a final or a semi-final, but they find the way to dig it out. And I think, do you know what this was? Brigids are a fairly young team. Glen are a very experienced team. And Brigids, like, maybe, like, because especially with that goal for Conor Glass, like, obviously Brigids take it quick, like a bit of smart thinking, and then Conor Glass obviously finds his way, like, from a distance out. It was kind of mad that he went for a goal. But you feel like Brigids with a bit more experience maybe would have seen that game out. So it was one of them things where for Brigids, like, young team, maybe made a few inexperienced errors sort of towards the end of the game that you wouldn't see from a side who's experienced. But at the same time, you have to commend Glen for finding a way to get over the line. Like, it is just, it's big stuff, and you just wonder. You just wonder about Derry this year. Like, I know I predicted Kerry to win the All-Ireland in my predictions. Look, I can't change my mind between now and, you know, when I make my All-Ireland predictions, but I think Derry, like, you just look at it and you think it might be their year, you know. Fair play to Brigids, though. Like, as I said before, you have to commend them. Like, considering nobody expected them to get to an All-Ireland final in the first place. Like, when you look back at my predictions, I didn't even back them to get out of Roscommon. I thought they'd slip up the Mohill, to be honest with you, and to Corofin, and like, they've got all the way to the final, and fair play to them. Massive performance from them and a massive year from them. And look, with players like Ben O'Carroll, some other younger lads in there as well, the future is certainly bright for St. Brigids, and they certainly won't be going anywhere anytime soon. You just hope, like, because sometimes when teams go really far in the All-Ireland series, it's very hard for them to repeat it again, like, a year later, like, especially for a young team. Especially when you've got lads who might go travelling, they might maybe want to do other things next year. Some of them will also be playing for Roscommon as well, so it's going to be a long year for them. So you just hope that they can build upon this and come back even stronger next year. Another person worth mentioning, like, in all of this, is Malachy ORourke. What a job he's done, obviously, with Watty Graham's Glen. I mean, I know a lot of people have been saying, like, surely he's going to manage an inter-county team like Tyrone, or obviously he was in line to manage Derry, and that obviously didn't work out sort of in the summer or whatever. Look, maybe at the end of the day, he's managing one of the best club teams in the country. I think Glen will be thereabouts again next year. So Malachy ORourke, to be fair, like, I get, like, maybe he would want to maybe manage a big inter-county job, and he'd want to try and compete and try and win an All-Ireland at inter-county level, or win Ulster titles and everything else. I know he did that obviously with Monaghan, but at the end of the day, he's managing a brilliant club, brilliant players. Why would he necessarily want to leave? You know, maybe, you know, like, why not stay and try and win the All-Ireland again next year? Because the players are certainly not going anywhere. They're certainly not going anywhere. And yeah, it is going to be interesting with Malachy ORourke, though. Like, I do have a feeling he's going to manage Tyrone. I think it's I've said it before. I think it's going to happen. Like, I think Fergal Logan, Brian Dooher are going to leave, and I think he's going to come into Tyrone. I really do. I think that's going to happen. Then it's going to be a really, like, mad storyline with Mickey Hart managing Derry, Malachy ORourke managing Tyrone. I think, obviously, you know, Malachy ORourke, a lot of history, obviously, with Derry, obviously managing Watty Graham's Glen, and of course Mickey Hart, a lot of history with Tyrone, managing Tyrone, and now managing Derry. So, yeah, like, that would be a mad thing if that happens. Looking at the other final, Olan Gales going up against St. Thomas. This game certainly was not without controversy. A lot of mad decisions, bizarre decisions on both counts. Bit of a wild game, I think we would both say. Olan Gales looked to be the team in control for large parts. Like, Mark Bergen was very good. They obviously started very strong first half. Was back and forth between both sides. There was a big incident then sort of in the, like, mid part of the first half where Owen Wall is running through. It looks originally that Fintan Burke has caught the ball on the line and cleared it, but when you actually then look at the replay, like, replays are hard because obviously, like, sometimes when you see a certain angle, it, like, there was no ultimate confirmation that the ball was over the line, but when you did look at it, it does look over the line. You have to say it. Like, ultimately, in real time, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, the umpires are standing right there. Surely, by God, you've one job. You would hope that they get this right, that they got it right. Like, because sometimes with angles, obviously with the curvature of the ball and everything else, you just don't know. Like, it could have, even if a centimetre of the ball is on the line, then technically you can't give a goal. So, but when you do look at the replays, it looked over the line, and I think very harsh on Olan Gales there. You did have some mad incidences as well. Like, Olan Gales could have arguably had 2 players sent off in the first half. One of them a headbutt. Again, don't know how the officials didn't see that. Blatant red card there, in my opinion. And then to top things off at the start of the second half, James Regan gets a red card for St. Thomas. And I'm like, what on earth has he actually done there for that to be a red card? Like, that was wild. Like, to do that in an All-Ireland final, I mean, by God, that was... But a fair play to St. Thomas. You wouldn't have known they played pretty much the entirety of the second half with 14 men. Like, that red card happened at the start of the second half, and weirdly, like, sometimes this happens in, like, Gaelic football, hurling, and even in other sports as well, where, like, a player gets sent off and the team with a man less actually plays better. It's almost like because the pressure is more so like really ramps up on the team that has the extra man, and they don't really know how to use it, and they don't really prepare for that in training. So it's like, well, who is the extra man? How do we make use of the extra man? And sometimes, like, because I remember even, like, was it Wexford Tipperary in an All-Ireland semi-final a couple of years ago, and I think Tipperary went down to 14 men and Wexford had an extra man and they couldn't make use of it. Or maybe it was the opposite, actually. Sorry, Wexford went down to 14 men, Tipperary had an extra man, but Wexford still nearly won the game. Like, that was... And this was like a similar scenario where St. Thomas down to 14 men and they were just playing some brilliant, delightful hurling. Conor Cooney, I was very impressed with. Aina Burke, I mean, we'll talk about that point to win the game. I mean, like, wow. Like, absolutely wow. Like, what dreams are made of. And sometimes you just seem to get this in All-Ireland finals and, like, big moments. It's like, you'll see, it's probably one of the best points we'll see all year. Like, to be in that position as well, like, his body isn't even set to hit the ball. Do you get, like, I, to be honest, haven't played hurling that, you know, I played a little bit when I was younger. I was much more of a Gaelic football man, if I'm being honest. So I can't, you know, I'm certainly not speaking of any experience here. But when you just look at the way he catches the ball, the lack of space, players around him, the pressure of the moment, to be able to do that in that moment, to win your club the All-Ireland, I mean, goodness me, surely this man is never going to have to pay for a point in his clubhouse ever again. Do you know what I mean? Like, give this man free beer forever. I don't even know if the man drinks alcohol. Maybe he doesn't. If he doesn't, give him something for free. Olan Gales, to be fair though, like, they were, 2-3 points down going into the final couple of minutes, and it looked like the moment had drifted past them even with a man down, and they managed to get themselves back into the game. Mark Bergen, I thought, was very impressive. And it was just, I don't know what it was in the second half, but like, Olan Gales looked fairly in control, like, in the first half, and even in the second half as well, at the start of the second half. And then they just kept losing puck outs. Passes were going astray. They seemed to run out of energy, and it just felt like St. Thomas had to hop on them a little bit, and they seemed to lose their, like, way of things. And I don't know if it was the pressure of being in front, All-Ireland final, like, never won an All-Ireland before at senior level. Like, I don't know if that pressure just really, really ramped up on them. But that, like, to be fair, like, they got themselves back into it late on, so maybe not. But yeah, like, in that sort of opening 20 minutes of the first half, of the second half, they just really, really lost their way. And St. Thomas, even with a man less, like, you wouldn't have thought it. You would have thought that Olan Gales had a man less when you actually looked at it. But ultimately, St. Thomas won the game. Obviously, as we're saying, Aina Burke with that late point. They win the All-Ireland, their first since 2013. Look, it's huge for St. Thomas because, like, obviously with the Galway Senior Hurling Championship, like, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure the majority of you do know, like, there's obviously no Connacht Senior Hurling Club Championship, because if there was, it would just be an absolute bloodbath every single year. And, you know, why have that? Let's just skip the process. The Galway champions go straight into the semi-finals. I've often said that the Galway champions should go into Leinster because of the fact that it's very hard to judge St. Thomas and the Galway champions at the best of times, because they're not as battle hardened as other teams, for example, that go through Leinster, go through Munster. And that's why St. Thomas very often have been caught in, you know, the Ulster Championship, or they've been caught by Ulster teams and different things like that. And they've had this scenario where they've been very close to beating a lot of big teams in the last couple of years, but just haven't been able to get over the line. Beat Ballygunner, obviously, via a penalty shootout. Like, that was obviously huge moment for St. Thomas, albeit that game was actually a draw. Like, if we're being honest, they obviously won on penalties. How many times down the years have we seen a big team, or how many times have we saw the favourites for the All-Ireland get beaten, and then the team who's beaten them in the semi-finals don't go on to win the All-Ireland? Like, Mayo beating Dublin in 2021, like, rings a bell there. Fair play, like, huge for St. Thomas. Olan Gales, like they obviously beat Ballyhale earlier in the year, so they probably have a similar scenario as well. But yeah, like, fair play to St. Thomas. They've obviously won multiple, is it like 5 in a row they've won in Galway, so they're certainly not going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to be thereabouts next year, make no question about that. And I'm sure Olan Gales will have a lot to say in Kilkenny as well, albeit they're going to have to take out the giant that is Ballyhale again, probably. Club finals, you just can't beat them. Like, I do think they should still be played on Paddy's Day. You know, it's tradition and everything else, and the weather's better, and it's just better spectacles. Like, to be fair, like, considering the storm and everything else, the games were still very, very good, and both games were cracking. Both games were absolutely cracking stuff, and really, really enjoyed both of them, in fairness, and fair play to both sets of teams. And it obviously brings a wrap to the club championships for 2023-24. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. There'll be a preview show coming on Thursday. The first preview of the National Football League will be live. Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, probably Thursday. I'd say probably do it on Thursday, and yeah, we'll do a preview show, get a few of the lads on, predict and preview all of the games happening this weekend, because there is so much going on to discuss. So hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Aaron. Speak to y'all soon.